I'm going to start recording this meeting now so that we can, I'll send it the link to everybody so that you can kind of go back over the information that we covered today. But for the next students, you're already in your placement. Hopefully you've already got your cooperating teacher and everything. So we're going to visit, everybody in this meeting today is going to visit with Erin or myself independently so that we can get an idea of exactly where you are in your program. In your student teaching and your placement and everything, especially if you're next student. If you are not a next student, and I think I have 2 or 3 of you that are not, after this meeting, we need to work diligently on getting your placement finalized and making sure that you have everything in order. I know that for some of you, school has already started, and that's okay. We are in a pretty big, I know the next people have heard about this over and over again, this transition that we're doing. And it's just part of, you're just part of growth when you're stuck kind of in the transition period. But I also want to reassure everybody again that we are here to work with you and not hold you to an unreasonable accountability standard. So just know that going forward, we're here to help you. We're here to help you during this transition to our new programs and our new requirements. So we're not going to kind of leave you out there in the cold. So let's just all work together to make sure that your last student teaching experience is the best one that you can possibly have. So moving forward at this point, does anybody have any questions before we get into the actual student teaching handbook? Okay, I'm taking that as no. Okay, Cassandra, thank you. Glad to have you here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to go through the student teaching handbook. You do not have a copy of this. Based on some of our training and our conversations today, I need to make some last minute edits to it, and then you will have everything that I cover today in hard copy. I'll send it to you, and you can print it out, and we can go forward from there. But I want to give you some basic guidelines so that we can work out any issues beforehand. So with that being said, I want to remind you all that classes at USW begin on August 20th. So I know that school for some of you has already begun. Don't panic if you're back at school already. If you're already in the classroom and everything, don't panic. Technically, things don't start until the 20th. So we've got a little bit of time to make sure we get paperwork and everything in before it even begins. So let's go ahead and we are going to go through, and again, you're going to get copies of this, and I want to go through as quickly as we can because I know a lot of you have things that you've got to get back to. So when you get this, when you get the handbook, I would suggest read through the handbook in its entirety. Make sure that you understand every aspect of the handbook. I'm not going to read through it all today. Eventually, when I send you the handbook, you will reply to me with a receipt of acknowledgement of that handbook. And that just tells me that you've received the handbook, you understand the contents of the handbook, and you will do everything within your power to abide by the rules and regulations in this handbook. So I'm not going to read all of this to you because of time constraints, but let's just go over some general requirements for student teaching. Again, student teaching is going to be at, this is the start date, and that is the end date. Student teaching is going to span 16 weeks. So it is a 16-week, I always tell students, be prepared when you go into student teaching. It's a 16-week full-time job, so without pay. So we've really got to be prepared for this. Those of you in the next program may have a different situation with your school district, but for the most part, traditionally, 16-week assignment with no pay. The span of the term is going to be, again, August 20th. The last class day is going to be December 14th. In student teaching, you cannot miss days unless you make them up without prior notification. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we progress through the handbook. So I've designated makeup days for anything. If you have a sick kiddo at home, you're traveling, something happens, you get sick, whatever, Those designated makeup days, we've got a real quick turnaround before we need to get final grades in. So designated makeup days are the 17th and 18th. You have to try diligently to be at school, to be at student teaching every single day. And we'll go over that a little bit more. Questions so far? Patsy, let me just do, are you able, is the sound quality okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I will randomly call on people just to make sure that the sound isn't getting distorted and everything. So I want to make sure that I'm reaching everybody. Okay. Obviously, as we've talked about, student teaching is a very, very important part of the program, teacher licensure program. I know that there's been a lot of transitions. There's a lot of changes. And matter of fact, there's a lot of changes from the state level, the state of New Mexico. So yes, you're stuck in that transition. Yes, I'm probably going to say some things that might be a little scary, that might get your blood pressure up a little bit. And that is mostly related to things that are being handed down from the state. So some state testing requirements. Effective after this term, all new people coming into the teacher education program have to have their essentials passed before they get into the teacher education program. If you are looking at the very last requirement, which is student teaching, and you have not taken and passed your essentials, this is not the last time you're going to hear me say this. It is imperative that you take your essentials as soon as possible and get them passed. Obviously, I am not going to not let you student teach in a week because you have not passed your essentials. But just know that it is so important that the state is handing down an initiative to teacher education programs saying students cannot even be admitted into the program without having those passed. So here some of you are at the very end of the program and don't have those tests passed. It becomes very, very worrisome to you once you graduate and you still have your essentials test to take. So while you're in the program, while you're working towards licensure, please make arrangements to get your essentials test passed. If you have passed your essentials test, congratulations. Now I'm going to hit you with passing your content test. Ideally, this is the time that you would have already passed your content test. So if you're thinking, whew, I have my essentials passed, don't sit back and get complacent and just say all you have is student teaching. You need to be preparing for your content test as soon as possible. Okay. Any questions about testing? We're going to talk more about testing too as you go through student teaching. Nope. Okay. So let's talk for a minute about some professional standards. I don't anticipate there's going to be any problems whatsoever with our student teachers. You guys are really, really good students, and you're devoted to your students, you're devoted to your districts and your cooperating teachers, but these are things that I have to go over, okay? First of all, being at school every single day, being in your student teaching placement every single day, taking initiative, being responsible, all of these things go into your level of preparedness once you finish student teaching. Being prepared, being prompt, courteous, dependable, all of those things are going to be imperative, because if you think about it, you are actually moving in to your cooperating teacher space, and you are literally asking them to give you control of their classroom. You may not understand the enormity of this right now, but I guarantee you your second, third, fourth, fifth year into teaching, you'll realize how important relinquishing that control can be. And if you relinquish that control of your classroom and your students, you must have some really, really good faith and be able to trust that student teacher. So we want to make sure that you understand what a big deal it is for you to go into somebody else's classroom and observe that teacher and eventually take over those teaching duties. So please be respectful. If you go into another, it's just like going into somebody else's home. You wouldn't be a guest in somebody else's home and come in and criticize the paint color or the smells or the furniture choices. You just wouldn't do that. So it's the same way when you go into a cooperating teacher's classroom. You respect that that's their classroom, and chances are they're going to do some things. Maybe their classroom management style is different from yours, and that's okay. We never want to criticize somebody else's choices. We don't want to criticize their classroom management, the way that they write their lesson plans, the way that they teach language arts. But what you do want to do is you want to observe. You want to observe those teachers. And I always tell student teachers, it is just important to walk away knowing what you don't want to do, what kind of teacher you don't want to become, as it is to walk away feeling really, really inspired by your cooperating teacher. So it's that observation that is really going to make a key in your preparedness. Okay, so you've had a little bit of time to read through those professional standards. I want to really draw your attention to a couple of things. First of all, you have to communicate. Well, let's go back up to the other one. Do not leave your cooperating teacher unprepared. This means if you were responsible for teaching a really big test prep session to a 7th grade science class, but you woke up sick that morning, you have got to communicate quickly and effectively with your cooperating teacher. Do not leave your cooperating teacher unprepared. Communication is imperative. Get your cooperating teacher's cell number so that you can text them. Discuss with them what the best way to reach them is if you get sick or if an emergency comes up and you have to miss a day. I'm telling you, try every reasonable effort to get to school every single day and to fulfill your student teaching obligations. The next one is to use the chain of command when you communicate problems. So the first thing that you want to do is if you have an issue that's really bugging you, I want you to talk to your cooperating teacher. And typically, between that communication between you and your cooperating teacher, that resolves a lot of issues. If you still feel like you're not being heard, it goes to your university supervisor. If you don't see that there's some resolution in your concerns or something, then you can elevate that to either myself or you can reach out to Erin so that she can contact me or something. But never, ever go above somebody else's head and say, this is just not working out, especially for minor issues. Talk to your cooperating teacher, talk to your university supervisor, and then elevate or escalate that request if needed. But typically, I've seen in all my years of doing this, just a simple conversation with a cooperating teacher to clear up any kind of misconceptions or miscommunications typically does the trick. And the very last thing, and the last bullet point on there, I cannot stress this enough. Matter of fact, I will have a cell phone use policy in effect going forward. So you have to stay off your phone when it is not being used for instructional purposes. If you have students in the classroom, if you are supervising students, if you are communicating with students or personnel in the school district or parents, do not be on your cell phone. I don't even want to have reports that your cell phone was out. There are a lot of school districts, and I've worked with teachers who have been teaching 5, 10, 15 years who say, our cell phones cannot even be on our desks. If there's an emergency, someone has to call the main office, and then they page us immediately. So please know your cooperating teacher's policy on cell phone use. What I do not want to have happen is I never ever want to be, or your university supervisor to be contacted by your cooperating teacher saying, I cannot get them off their phone. I cannot get them to pay attention. So if it's instructional use, That's fine if it's approved by your cooperating teacher. Otherwise, please stay off your phone. I do not want to dismiss you from student teaching because you cannot stay off your phone. Okay, so as far as professional standards go, any questions so far on those? No? Okay, I'm going to call on Omar. Omar, is the sound quality still okay?
Yes, ma'am. The sound quality is good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I don't think I have to go over this. Dress code. Make sure that bottom line is I've added some suggestions here, but bottom line, you guys, just follow your district's policy. Always follow your district's policy. When in doubt, your cooperating teacher, your mentor teacher in the classroom will be your guide for dress policy issues. So always contact your cooperating teacher or your university supervisor for guidelines. I don't think that's an issue. I really rarely have issues, but I do have to mention dress code. Okay, holidays. Just remember that for holidays, you are required to follow the calendar of the district in which you are placed. So you're not following USW's calendar anymore. You're following whatever district it is that you are placed in. Okay. Here's another issue that tends to come up all the time is serving as a substitute teacher. People ask me all the time, I'm a student teacher, can I serve as a substitute? So here is the basis of what I want you to remember. If someone asks you to serve as a substitute teacher, it's not cut and dry. It's not as easy as saying, okay, yeah, I'll cover your class if you have to go to the doctor next week. There are a couple of guidelines because the liability involved with student teachers serving as substitute teachers gets pretty high. So we want to make sure that some of these are followed. First and foremost, if you have a request from your cooperating teacher to serve as a substitute, while he or she maybe has a doctor's appointment or anything, you need to communicate that request to your university supervisor. Okay, and I'm going to give you the name of your university supervisor very, very soon when I email you. So you need to stay in communication. Just send her an email and say, I've been asked next week by my mentor teacher, my cooperating teacher, to cover their class while they're away at an in-service for the day. There's a couple of requirements before we can approve that request. There's a couple of requirements that have to be met. First of all, and they're on this page right here. First of all, how unfair is this? It's the way that it is. You cannot be paid for serving as a substitute teacher. Okay? So there's a fine line between pay and no pay for student teachers serving as subs. So you cannot receive pay from the school district if you serve as a substitute teacher. That's just the way the rules are written. However, you can still help out. A lot of people say, well, the student teacher's in there anyway. Even if we got a substitute, they don't know them as well. The students don't even know the substitute as well as they know the student teacher. So let's just let them go. And we can. However, you have to be assigned to the classroom for a minimum of 10 days. So those of you that are new to your student teaching placement, you have to be in there for 10 days before we will even consider you to serve as a sub. Second, if a substitute is not immediately available, your administrator has to have made every effort to find one. So I don't question that. Whatever your administrator says, we're going to go with it as long as all these other ones have been met. Okay, we're going to assume that your administrator has made every effort to get another substitute teacher, and they can't, and that's why they're asking a student teacher to serve in that role. The cooperating teacher has to agree, the cooperating teacher, the campus administrator, and the university supervisor have to agree that you, the student teacher, are capable of handling the teacher responsibilities. And typically, that's exactly what happens. Everybody says, oh yeah, they can, Joe can, he's been in here for 2 weeks now. He can handle it for a day. Okay, so if everybody agrees on that, then we're good. That there is a teacher in close proximity that can serve as a support to you. Okay, so if you have a major classroom disruption, if you have one semester I had a student teacher serving as a substitute, and one of the kiddos in their class had a seizure, and the student teacher was just not equipped to deal with that. And so luckily, right next door, there was another teacher that was able to come in and switch places with that student teacher. The student teacher watched her classroom. The seasoned teacher that was next door came in, called for help, and was able to get everything done. So this is all an effort to support you and make sure that you are in a safe position to be able to continue your student teaching, because we don't want to put you in a situation that could jeopardize your student teaching or put you in a situation that makes you liable for any kind of student injury or anything like that. We want to make sure that the campus administrator or administrative designee is in the building, not gone, but is in the building and readily available, and that everybody's just on the same page is basically what that's saying to the last one. That an email is sent from you, the student teacher. Make sure that your cooperating teacher and your university supervisor and your campus administrator all know that you're going to be serving as a substitute. Again, it comes back down to communication. All right, this is usually an area where there's a lot of questions. So at this point, who has questions about student teachers serving as a substitute? Nobody? And make sure that if you don't have a microphone, that you can type your questions into the chat box. No questions? I hope everybody's still here. Everybody with us? Okay. Well, we're going to move on. Maybe either everybody's asleep or I'm doing a good job of explaining this. So, okay, we're going to move on then. Let's see. Grading and evaluation. This is another important aspect of student teaching. Yes.
There's a couple questions in the chat box regarding IAs and subbing.
Oh, they just popped up. Okay. How does it work if we are if we are an IA? If you're in because you're in the next program, typically these rules are a little bit different because you are employed by the school district as an IA. So typically these rules are applying more to the non-employees, the traditional student teachers, which I have about 6 of those. So if you are a next student, if you're in the next program and you're employed by the district as an IA, then the rules are a little bit different for you. You can serve as a sub with your cooperating teacher out for the day, but we still need to have notification that you're being served as a sub. You're serving as a sub. So what you'll do is you'll just send your university supervisor an email, and that's the only communication. If you're a next student, you just need to let your cooperating or your university supervisor know that your cooperating teacher has asked you to serve as a sub. Okay, we just want to be kept in on the loop of that. So if you're next student, it's a little bit different. Yesenia, let's see. Have to let the supervisor, if we in our own classroom. Okay, so that is another question that goes along with, she's asking a question that's probably very, very specific to her situation, so I'm not going to read that out. Yesenia, you and I need to talk about that individually, so let's schedule a time after this meeting to talk. What if it's in another classroom? That's a good question that applies to all of this too. If you are asked to serve as a sub in another classroom, that's not even your assigned classroom, either as an IA or a student teacher, then you need to make sure that your cooperating teacher is okay with that. Via email, we need documentation. So say you're in a 7th grade science class and the 5th grade math teacher is going to be out that day. So the administrator comes to you and says, we cannot find a sub for that 5th grade class. We're going to take you out of this 7th grade classroom and put you in the 5th grade classroom. Your university supervisor needs email approval from you stating that it is okay that your administrator and your cooperating teacher are in agreement that you can serve as a sub in that 5th grade classroom. So anything that takes you out of your student teaching placement, what we have agreed that is going to be your student teaching placement, anything that takes you out of that and puts you in another setting, I need your cooperating teacher and your school administrator, your campus administrator, to say that is okay. If you're employed, that is between you and your district about getting, if you are a paid employee, a paid IA in the schools already, you're on their payroll, you've completed all of the HR requirements, and they want to pay you for being a sub, that is between you and the school district. Our traditional, sorry guys, but our traditional student teachers that are not employed with that school district cannot take pay as a substitute teacher. Okay, good questions. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Y'all just keep adding to the chat room. I know there's lots of, for some reason, all mine just populated. So I'm just reading through those to make sure that I don't miss anything. Okay, good. So let's take a look at grading and evaluation. Your cooperating teacher and your university supervisors will be doing evaluations. So your cooperating teacher, I will send you the form for your cooperating teacher to fill out a total of 3 evaluations. One of these evaluations need to be, and I'll provide you with the due dates as we go through these 16 weeks in an email. I'll provide you with the due dates for each one of these 3 evaluations from your cooperating or mentor teacher. Okay, it's going to be one that's done early, it's going to be a mid evaluation, and it's going to be a late evaluation. So 3 within the 16 weeks, and we want to check for growth during those evaluations. Okay, so your mentor teacher will have a form. It's a pretty easy form. It's a form that they can do pretty quickly. You as a student teacher need to facilitate that. So you need to give that form to your cooperating teachers. Your university supervisor will also come and visit you in your student teaching placement. Okay, she will come and visit you and she will be doing 3 observations as well. She'll do one early, she'll do one mid, and she'll do one late, checking for growth. It is your responsibility to communicate with your university supervisor to determine a time and a date that is best for you, your cooperating teacher, and your university supervisor, so she can make a physical trip to sit in on at least a 45-minute assignment, a lecture, a presentation that you're doing. So basically what she needs to see is she needs to see you teaching a lesson. Don't invite your university supervisor over to come and watch you do playground duty. We want to see delivery of instruction, how that instruction is aligning with the lesson plans that you're doing, and so on and so forth. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about those visits in just a little bit. Discipline policy. Make sure that you discipline. Classroom management is huge in public education. Some of you that are IAs already know that. Some of you that are going out and doing student teaching for the first time ever will learn that. Classroom management is kind of critical to all other areas of teaching. You cannot effectively teach students if you do not have good classroom management. Students just are not going to learn. So you really need to pay special attention to your cooperating teacher's classroom management style, and also look at other management styles. So when you're getting kiddos lined up to go to the lunchroom, what kind of procedures do your teacher and other teachers use to prevent mass chaos of little bitty kids running to the lunch line, or passing periods, or going to recess? So those are the types of observations that you need to make with classroom management throughout these next 16 weeks. The most important thing to take away from this is that you may not use any form of corporal or physical punishment as a disciplinary action during student teaching. If you're an I don't care if you're an IA, I don't care if you're a next student or traditional student, alternative licensure student, whatever. While you are affiliated with University of the Southwest, you may not administer corporal punishment, SWATs, whatever it is that the district is using. I think most districts have really pretty much gotten away from the use of SWATs or corporal punishment in the schools because of the liability associated with it. So please, 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 if you are ever asked to serve in a situation to provide corporal punishment, I am telling you, it is in your best interest to say thanks but no thanks. Do not follow that request. If you're in a situation to where that becomes bothersome or troublesome or whatever, please contact someone at USW immediately and say, listen, I need a little backup here. They're asking me to administer corporal punishment or whatever, and we will certainly help you fight that battle. I just don't see that that's going to be an issue. In my 12 years of doing this, I've had 2 instances. One that I had to dismiss a student from the teacher education program 2 months before they were supposed to graduate because there was quite a bit of liability involved in that student teacher. He was a coach. He administered corporal punishment really fast, swift, got rid of it, and then he got in some pretty hot water with the parents in the school, and so he was dismissed because he violated this policy. So please, no corporal punishment or physical contact in the processes of disciplining students. Always be familiar with your district's discipline policy prior to taking control of the classroom. Any questions on corporal punishment? And again, I'm going through these fast, so please make sure that you read this when you get a copy of this handbook. Make sure that you review every bit of this because I'm skipping over quite a bit of it. Usually another big question that I have is that of lesson plans. During your 16 weeks, you will be required to either develop or teach through already developed lesson plans. Some of your districts use lesson plans that are already prefabricated. They're already made. They're coming from a database, and it comes out really nice and tidy, and things are printed out, and you follow that, and you develop your lessons based on those lesson plans that the district has adopted. Some of you are going to be at school districts where you still do old school, let's write out lesson plans every week and this and that. So what I need you to do during your first week of placement in student teaching, one of the biggest questions you're going to ask is, what kind of lesson plan policy does your cooperating teacher have? Does she use lesson plans that were developed 3 years ago that she keeps using over and over and over again, which is fine. If it works and it's effective, then that's fantastic. It saves her time. But you need to figure out what your cooperating teacher's lesson plan procedure is, and you need to follow that. If your teacher says, hey, we need to meet every Thursday afternoon to plan for the next week to do lesson plans, you have to be in on those planning meetings, okay? Because your university supervisor, you will be graded on your participation and knowledge about lesson plans. And then when you take over completely teaching, which we're going to go over in just a minute, teaching in the classroom, you will be responsible for the implementation of those lesson plans, the development and the implementation of those lesson plans. So over the first couple of weeks while you're in that classroom, pay special note, meet with your cooperating teacher, and find out how they do their lesson plans. Questions on lesson plans? Okay, I've got nothing in the chat box either, so. Your cooperating teacher or your mentor teacher will also be getting an email from me as soon as we have all of those finalized. They will be receiving an email from me along with this handbook and the evaluation tool that they will be using 3 times during the 16 weeks. I will also tell them the importance of collaborating with you on lesson plans because that may not be a really strong suit of yours. And so we want to make sure that you get all of the mentoring you need and all of the support you need while you're student teaching as far as lesson planning goes. So just know that your cooperating teacher will be receiving a copy of this handbook as well. So there's some things in here that are very relevant to the cooperating teacher, but I definitely want you to read through the cooperating teacher requirements as well. So let's talk about the specific 16-week schedule. And we're not splitting any assignments up, so disregard anything, any kind of references to split assignments. We're just not gonna do that. So 16 weeks, this is kind of what the progression of those 16 weeks are going to be looking like. Okay. Let's see. First week that you're there, and remember when I talk about weeks, next students is going to be a little bit different for you because you may have already started school. You're already in your classrooms and everything. But the formal student teaching process is going to be rolled out like this. So we're going to have to modify it for next students, but those of you that are in the traditional student teaching, this is what that's going to look like. So for the very first week, if you do not know, if you are a next student or if you're brand new IA or something like that, starting August 20th starts your first week 1. This is where week 1 is your teaching responsibilities here. You have no teaching responsibilities at all week 1. This is where you're getting oriented to the cafeteria, lab equipment. This is where you're going to become familiar with the lesson planning protocol, classroom management, rules, classroom rules. What are the rules for procedures and how do we line up to go to recess and things like that. So first week is nothing but orientation to your cooperating teacher, the campus, handbooks, those types of things. Weeks 2 and 3, this is going to be a gradual takeover of your responsibilities. So maybe if you are assigned to a 6th grade social studies class, and in that 6th grade social studies setting, you have 8 or 7 periods of social, your cooperating teacher has 7 periods of social studies in that day. Maybe weeks 2 and 3, you take first and third periods, and you teach a brief lesson in each one of those. Whatever works out with you and your cooperating teacher, but it's a gradual takeover. Okay, especially week 2 is a very gradual takeover, and so week 3, maybe you're getting a little bit more familiar, a little bit more. You're getting a little bit more confident in the process. Moving on to weeks 4 through 12. This is when you are teaching all day, every day. I know that this is a long period of time, so it may be. Hang on, just a minute, you guys. I had a little bit of a user error here as I'm scrolling down. I hope I'm still there. Adriana, is the sound still good? Aaron, can y'all still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to keep going. You'll be able to see the teaching responsibilities increase. So I want you to read over this schedule that takes you all the way through 16 weeks of student teaching. So don't think that this is not flexible. If there is, if you need flexibility and you see that maybe during weeks 2 and 3 was a little bit rough and you need to go into maybe week 5, as far as week 5 or maybe even possibly week 6 to be comfortable in taking over the entire classroom, then that's okay too. Don't feel like we have to adhere to this so strictly that you're going to fail student teaching if you are not teaching all day, every day by week 4. There's some flexibility. This is a guide. My main point is that for at least 6 weeks in your 16-week student teaching, for at least 6 to 8 weeks, I want you teaching all day, every day, with every aspect that encompasses student teaching. What questions do we have on the schedule, the student teaching schedule? Is everybody still awake out there? I know a lot of y'all are probably multitasking too, and that's okay. But now is the time to ask questions if you have them.
We may have to revisit the split schedule with student teaching 1 being 8 weeks and student teaching 2 being 16, or the second 8 weeks.
Okay.
But that can just be a matter of certain things being submitted to the first Blackboard and then the last half submitted to the second half. But
yeah.
I'm not anticipating problems. But.
Right. Thanks for bringing that up. Right now for fall student teaching, we are likely not going to be using, well, I'm not going to even say that. We'll be talking about how to submit, what the best route to submit paperwork is going to be right now. So just so I would like to, we're gonna cover that. So thanks for bringing that up, Aaron. But nobody submit anything yet. Even if you have access to a Blackboard course, do not submit anything to Blackboard yet until I give you specific instructions on where to submit it to. What I'm working on is one Blackboard class that everybody in student teaching can upload their stuff to. So we're not having to go through several different Blackboard classes. That's neither here nor there or your problem, but just wait. If I ask you to email something back to me, then that is what we're going to use until we get to the point of uploading to Blackboard. So thanks for bringing that up, Aaron. Okay, let's move on now that you know kind of the basic outline and requirements for student teaching. Let's go on to some of the forms. Speaking of submission of some of the requirements, the very first thing that I need everybody in here to do is complete the student teaching contact information and schedule. This does not have to be immediately. Obviously, it can't be done probably until your first day. I'm not asking for this prior to the 20th. Okay, so prior to the 20th, we don't need this right now because you still need to get your schedule, the Bell schedule, you've got to get some information. So, but just know that when we start asking you for your student teaching contact information, that this is what that is. Weekly reflection. We have a weekly activity and reflection log. You will, at the end of your student teaching experience, you will have 16 of these. There's nothing about this that is supposed to be earth-shattering or overly time-consuming. This is basically, this is week 1. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm really strong at doing. And this is what I need some extra work or some improvements that I'm going to work on going into next week. Okay, so it is basically a very short, simple. You can either type your reflections in, you can print these out, and you can handwrite them, scan them, and email them to us. I don't care how you do it, but these reflections have to be done every single week. A lot of my students say that it's best if they do this while they're doing their lesson planning for the week, and that is fine too. So just as long as it encompasses your full week and you're reflecting on what you've done well and some of your requirements or some areas of improvement the next week. If you are absent as a student teacher, you need to have one of these completed and submitted to your university supervisor. This is a verification form, so if you are absent or you are missing days, what are we going to do to make those days up? Okay, we will work with you individually to make sure that all of these requirements are met. If you are serving as a substitute, here's a form that needs to be completed. If you're serving as a substitute, next students will work with you individually because I know the substitute policy is probably a little bit different from you since you're already employed in the school district. This is a receipt of verification. Since we are not meeting in person, typically when I do this in person. We do have these student teaching seminars, and we couldn't do that this term. So because I'm going to be sending all of this to you electronically, I will ask you to send me an email back saying, I have received the handbook, I acknowledge that I've received this handbook, and that you're going to use it for guidance throughout your next 16 weeks. Okay? Okay, there's one more thing that we have to cover outside of the handbook, and that is your final portfolio that will be due for student teaching, for final credit for student teaching. So I've also have some documents that I'll send you about your final portfolio. Basically, your final portfolio is going to be a notebook that is going to encompass everything that you're going to be doing for the 16 weeks, okay? So you're going to have lesson plans in there. First of all, you're going to have a copy of your resume or your Vita, usually resume at this point. You're going to write a philosophy of education. What is your philosophy on education? And as we move along through the term, you'll be getting more guidance on how to do this. So don't think I'm just throwing this at you and saying go and do it right now. You'll be getting more guidance on how to do this, I promise. But I just want you to be aware of this requirement so that you can start gathering your stuff from day one. Lesson plans, 16 weeks of lesson plans need to be included in your final portfolio. And so you can go through, I know a lot of you need to get going. I told you I'd keep you a little bit more than an hour, so I know we're coming up on that pretty quickly. I'm going to send you all of this, so please read through all of the requirements that you need for your final portfolio to be submitted and submitted on time. I also have a rubric here that I will include on what's going to be graded and what your final grade is going to look like. But that portfolio is important. I don't care if it is organized from day one. Just have something that you can keep all of your teaching materials in. Keep everything, you guys. Keep every single thing that you think might be important for student teaching. Please keep it. And then you can organize it. If you're the type of person that organizes as you go, perfect. I have reviewed some of these teaching portfolios for the last term, and some of them are fantastic. And I loved reading through them. As I read through them, I could see exactly the progression of everything that the student was doing. Some of them I've looked at are not great. They're disorganized. You can tell minimal effort was put into them. So what I'm looking for is organization, something that's comprehensive, that includes something from every week that you're in the classroom. So you will be getting more guidance on that as we move forward. But for right now, just know that you're going to have a culminating project at the end of student teaching. And right now, they're paper. Hopefully, in the future, we'll go to electronic portfolios. But right now, for time's sake, we're going to be doing just electronic portfolios. Okay, what questions do you guys have? questions? Okay, that concludes going over the student teaching handbook. We are still going to need to, I would like to meet with everybody individually to talk about, and by meet, I mean either send me a time where you can call or let's email. But what I need to do, especially Adriana, Taylor, Omar, Cassandra, anybody that is non-next and that is planning to do their student teaching, please, we have to meet so that we have your placement finalized. We have your placement going like as soon as possible. It's critical that I at least meet with those people who do not know that they have confirmation of their student teaching placement. If you know that you have confirmation of student teaching, I will need you to send me an email with, okay, so if you've been sleeping through this whole thing, this is where I need you to pay attention. If you have confirmation of student teaching your next 16 weeks, I need you to send me an email and copy Aaron on that email. I need you to send me the placement, what school you're at, what district you're at. I need you to send me the name and the email of your cooperating teacher. And I need you to tell me what setting you're assigned to. Specifically, student teaching, what classroom you have been assigned to. If you have not had confirmation of your placement, if you do not know where you're being placed, if you do not have a placement, I need you to send me an email saying, I do not have confirmation of being placed in a school yet. But I need everybody that attended this meeting today to send me an email, copy Aaron, and let me know where you are. Next students, I believe you're already fairly squared away. But it's those 3 or 4 other students that are more the traditional program that I need to hear from so that we can work on verifying placement like today and tomorrow. I want to get you placed. Questions? Okay, I'm going to go down the roll one more time before I let you all go. Okay, so I'm going to go down one more time in the same order that I called roll at the very beginning, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay, so Adriana.
Yes.
Okay, are you good?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So you send me that email, okay?
Okay.
Taylor, did you ever show up, Taylor Sobieski? Omar?
Yes, ma'am, we're good. I'll make sure to get that email in within the hour.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay, Sylvia.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, send me an email, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Veronica.
Yes, ma'am. I'm still here.
Okay, great. If you'll send me that email as soon as possible.
I sure will.
Thank you. Cassandra Gutierrez. I think you are okay. Good, Cassandra. Make sure you send me that email. Patsy. Patsy.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Can you? I don't have placement yet, but I will give you a call or I'll send you an email.
Sounds good. Okay. Jessie Lynn.
She responded via chat. She's good.
Okay. And Yesenia, can you add something in the chat box, please? Jessica?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then Cassandra Sidabaka, just respond in the chat box.
Yes, I was just wanting to know if you already had my information when I spoke to you and Aaron the other day about my placement.
I think so. Jessica, I'll get with Aaron and make sure that we have that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Yesenia just said she's going to send me an email, and Cassandra is too. Okay, perfect. I think I got everybody. So thank you for meeting and for listening to this. It's really important that we're all on the same page moving forward. I will just be on the lookout. Another thing I have to mention really quick is please, please, please check your USW email. I know that a lot of you from work can't check your USW email, so check it as soon as you get home or something. I try really, really hard to accommodate your other emails, but just know that when we run reports and everything, we use USW emails. So please get in the habit of checking your USW email every single day from this point forward until you finish up your student teaching. So please, please, please communicate with us using your USW email. Okay, with that, I'm going to let you all go. Please look for emails from me with handbooks, forms to be signed, how to proceed through Blackboard and some of those other things. And as always, reach out to Aaron or myself with any questions that you have. And I look forward to starting this off on the 20th. Thank you.